When can we expect the Patrick Kane trade to the Rangers to be completed? Plus, we also have other updates on Thatcher Demko maybe being traded out of Vancouver. Tanner Jeannot out of Nashville appears to be close to being dealt as well. JVR, Kevin Hayes, some other names we're watching. We have news from the NHL waiver wire, some injury updates, and more. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Let's hurry up and record and get this video out before all the information changes. The trades have been flying through the news cycle here today, and hopefully some of the rumors we talk about are still worth listening to by the time this hits YouTube over the next hour or two. But we have a lot to cover today, starting with the NHL waiver wire. Yesterday we had Jake Leschyshyn in New York, Jordy Ben in Toronto, and Vinny Lettieri in Boston, all on waivers. All three players have cleared and could be reassigned to their minor league affiliates. I believe most or all of them have already been reassigned already. Some injury updates. The Montreal Canadiens announced that rookie defenseman Arber Xhekaj is out for the season. We already know he was hurt and he's been out for a little while, but now he's elected to have season-ending shoulder surgery. So he will be done for the rest of the year, but should be good to go for training camp next season. Kirby Dach is now listed as out indefinitely. He's been dealing with what they originally called an illness, non-COVID illness. Then it was upgraded or changed to a lower body injury, which maybe it's an infection. I'm not really sure what it is. But anyways, there's something that changed there. Went from an illness to an injury. And he's listed as out indefinite now. The Rangers have certainly had a couple of scary things happen. One, defenseman Ryan Lindgren hurt his shoulder. There was some talk he might go on LTIR, be out for the rest of the regular season or close to it, which would allow them to accelerate the Patrick Kane trade. That doesn't appear to be the case right now, according to head coach Jerard Fagerberg. They're hoping that it's not too serious. It doesn't look like it is, and that he shouldn't be out too long. They actually had Braden Schneider, Ryan Carpenter in the lineup tonight, but didn't really play. They're trying to protect him. I think they ended up, Carpenter might take one shift or something like that. They were trying to protect them, though. Like by NHL rules, they had to dress 18 players. They really only played 16, trying to, roster management, trade-related reasons, whatever you want to call it. They needed Schneider and Carpenter to be reassigned to the minors. If they get hurt, that gets complicated because they need to accrue all this cap space, which we'll talk a little further on the Kane thing. But in tonight's game as well, that they're playing the Kings, Mika Zibanejad blocked a Drew Doughty slap shot, and it looked bad. It got him right around the ankle area. He had a hard time getting up. The MSG went pretty much dead silent there for a little bit. A scary situation. Helped off, went straight to the locker room. But then miraculously comes out for the third period and plays and appears to be okay. I'm sure he's going to be dealing with some soreness, maybe a bad bruise. I don't know what exactly the outcome is, but he's playing, which is a big sigh of relief for Rangers coach Jerard Fagerberg fans alike. So I know as they're trying to kind of skip down the roster, the crew that can necessarily cap space to get the Kane trade in place, it's kind of putting them at risk, running to some other things. So hopefully this doesn't implode on them here. Buffalo Sabres, Alex Tuch is out. That's going to be a blow to them. They've been playing well lately, making a push to get into that wild card spot. They obviously want to try to hang on to it, get into the playoffs for the first time in a long time. He's listed as week to week now on injury reserve. So thankfully they have lots of players playing well, but he certainly will be missed, and that's certainly not welcome news for them. We had a goalie goal last night. We don't get too many goaltenders scoring in the NHL. It's the first goalie goal since Pekka Rinne of Nashville did it just right around 3 years ago. The Boston Bruins, you could say Vezina leading contender Linus Ullmark, scored into the open net of the Vancouver Canucks last night. It was quite the shot down the ice. First time we've seen that in a while. So congratulations to Linus Ullmark. Like I said, it's a rare thing that happens in the NHL, but nice to see. Certainly, is having a phenomenal season in Boston. It turned out to be a great pickup when he left Buffalo. They thought they were going to sign him. He ended up signing a free agent contract with the Bruins, and he's been really took his career to a whole new level since joining Boston last year. Now, we've had a flurry of NHL trades today. We could have more today, as I mentioned earlier. I want to try to get this video out while the information is still relevant, but just to quickly recap, there's all kinds of other shorter videos in discussing each scenario individually if you want a little bit more of a breakdown or analysis. But we've seen some trades today, including Ivan Barbashev of St. Louis going to Vegas. So Vegas has acquired Ivan Barbashev today. We saw a trade between Montreal and Dallas with the Canadian sending of Evgeny Dadonov to Dallas for Denis Gurianov. I was surprised by that one. Didn't think there was a big market for Dadonov, and I certainly didn't think they would get themselves a 25-year-old forward that has some skill. Yes, he's been inconsistent. I know he's frustrated at the Stars and their fans alike, I'm sure, because they've seen him be really good at times, but just not often enough, you could say. But, to get Dadonov for him, I think is a little underwhelming for Dallas. Good deal for Montreal. Jack Johnson, of course, goes back to Colorado. Of course, he was part of their cup-winning championship team last year, signed as a UFA in Chicago. Of course, they had to let a lot of players go because they just did not have the space to sign him, but they've reacquired him for younger defenseman Andreas Englund. So if he goes to Chicago, trying to get more of an opportunity, Johnson goes back, and we'll go back to where he has to try to defend that championship he helped them win last year. There's a couple of other trades in the works that might be happening tonight. We'll start with Timo Meier of the Sharks, soon to be New Jersey Devil by the looks of things. By the time I get done recording this video, the deal might be finalized, but it's about 2.5 hours now since the news broke that Meier was being dealt to the Devils, and we still don't have the return. According to Elliot Friedman, there was a bit of a hold-up because one of the players involved might have been dealing with an injury, and the teams were working through that to try to sort things out. So we don't know where things stand exactly, but essentially it sounds like Timo Meier and defenseman Scott Harrington are going to go from San Jose to New Jersey for a package that's going to include a variety of things going to San Jose. Of course, as I mentioned, Tanner Jeannot, the Nashville Predators, might be traded tonight. That may not go down, but he was held out of the Predators game. He was a scratch due to trade-related reasons tonight. He's a pending UFA. Of course, he had a bit of a, you could say, a late-blooming career, but certainly a player that had a phenomenal rookie season last year. Maybe taking some steps back this year, but then again, so was the whole team. A lot of players not performing quite to the level they did last year with the Nashville Predators this year. And there's been some talk that they did, explore extending him, but obviously things weren't working out. And now they must be getting some offers that they felt were pretty relevant and that they probably don't want to pass up. Now, the team that he's expected to go to right now, the rumor is Jeannot to Tampa. Don't know if that's how close that is, but that was rumored. There's also some sources indicating that the New York Islanders and the Sharks have been having some serious trade talks, but we don't necessarily know which particular player. It's not necessarily Tanner Jeannot. It could be somebody else. Maybe Matthias Ekholm. You just never know. They have a variety of players, or even Dante Fabro. There's a variety of players there that the Preds are willing to listen on. So we'll have to see. Now, also with the Preds, the other news that came out today, which there's also a dedicated video on the channel on, as well as we're going to see a change in GM. The first and only ever GM in Preds history, David Poile, who has over 3,000 NHL games on his resume as a GM, most of the NHL history, is going to be retiring as of June 30th. Former longtime Predators head coach Barry Trotz, who's been out of the NHL for just over a year, is returning to his roots in Nashville as the new general manager. He will start working with Poile effective immediately and will officially take over the full-time GM title and role when he retires on June 30th. So there's long rumored that Barry Trotz wanted to get back to the NHL, but he wanted a management role, or if he was going to coach, he only wanted to do that short term and then transition to management. And there was some talk that he'd be interested to go back to his old stomping ground. So that certainly makes a lot of sense as well. So lots going on in Nashville, significant changes, not only in the front office, but possibly on the rosters. They listen to a lot of different trade talks on a variety of different players. Lots of other rumors out there when it comes to the Rangers and Patrick Kane. It sounds like that trade could happen as early as Wednesday. It likely won't happen before that because of the amount of cap space that the Rangers need. As I've been talking about the past couple of days, we've seen a series of events that we've been able to kind of predict based on salary cap needs and roster management that we were expecting. So we saw a Vitaly Kravtsov trade. He's off the roster. We saw Jake Leschyshyn go on waivers. He cleared. His full contract can be buried in the minors. They were talked about earlier, Ryan Carpenter, Braden Schneider are being demoted. And it's not really any kind of punishment to either of them. It's really just to get down to accrue more cap space. Braden Schneider is not going to play in the American Hockey League. They've had him up all season. He's really just, on paper, going to the EHL for those cap purposes as well. So between all that, that's what's expected to go down, but it may not be exactly Wednesday. Like I said, there's also the Ryan Lindgren injury they have to watch. And then, of course, the Mika almost got hurt. Well, he did get hurt tonight. Is he will continue on? There's some other moving parts there, but all indications are that the framework's pretty much agreed to. Just a matter of getting the cap space lined up for Patrick Kane to the Rangers, which, like I said, Wednesday would likely be what we see, but it could end up needing some more time if things change just a little bit. It could push into Friday's deadline, but hopefully it won't. I know they want to get this done as soon as possible. Some other names to watch: James Van Riemsdyk in Philadelphia. Some talk, we know for some time he was likely going to be moved at 50% retention by the Flyers, which would knock him down to $3.5 million. A lot of talk that the Minnesota Wild might be a team on him. There was some talk about maybe Winnipeg having interest, but of course they acquired Niederreiter from Nashville yesterday, so certainly that was a player that's, probably takes them out of the JVR market. So Minnesota makes sense, and there's some talk that Jordan Greenway could be involved. Of course, the Wild have been shopping him and would like to move and get him a fresh start. He does have some term on his contract, but many feel he'd be a great fit with the Flyers, and that might be a good swap. Now, there may not necessarily be, an even trade 1-for-1. I would suspect there could be some picks or some other pieces that might be involved there to kind of even things out, but JVR going to Minnesota certainly does make sense, and Greenway being involved in some capacity also makes it easier from a cap perspective and just from getting, like I said, a fresh start and moving things along in that sense. The Carolina Hurricanes are one of the few teams here in the East that hasn't made their big move. The East have been at a bit of an arms race, you could say, with obviously teams like the Islanders got things kicked off getting Bo Horvat. The Leafs pulled off a blockbuster getting O'Reilly and a cherry from St. Louis. We're hearing Tanner Jeannot might be heading to Tampa. The Bruins pulled off a big trade with the Capitals. The Canes are a major powerhouse in this division in the conference, and they've yet to do their thing. We're hearing Timo Meier to the Devils, even though it's not officially done, as I said earlier. But still, the Canes are one of the teams that haven't done their thing yet, and there's speculation they might be looking into Kevin Hayes in Philadelphia. Now, they would only like to do this if the Flyers are willing to eat some money in that contract, but there's a lot of speculation Kevin Hayes won't be in Philly next year. And if the Flyers had to, they might even consider a buyout in the offseason. But that would be expensive. I mean, he's got 3 more years on his contract. If they buy him out, they're going to be tied to that for a long time. And for the first 3 years, if they were willing, if you look at what a retention would be on a trade, like if they hold back $2 or $3 million to hold and lower that for the acquiring team like Carolina, knock that down to, maybe in the $4 million range, 4.5 or something to that effect. That would be a huge addition to Carolina. You could slot him in the lineup a little bit lower, like he needs to be, instead of playing first line minutes with Philly, and gets them off that contract. But if they did a buyout and said they're going to have, it's twice the remaining term at 2/3 of the money. So I honestly think a retention on a trade would be better and cheaper for them. So it does make sense that they would at least consider it. Depends on what the offer is, of course, so we'll have to see. But Kevin Hayes to Carolina is something that we should be watching out for, according to fourthperiod.com and insider Dave Pagnotta. And Thatcher Demko, another report from Pagnotta, says that he sees some sources telling him that are connected to the Canucks that Demko might be done in Vancouver. I know he publicly denied the fact that he wanted to trade, but then again, that doesn't almost mean anything. You don't really hear players ever publicly come out and say, it's rare that any professional athlete would come out and say, like, I want out or I want to trade. Like, it is occasional, but for the most part, especially in the NHL, you don't see and hear that. Team players always say that they're happy to be a part of the organization they're with and they don't want out, and they don't know where these rumors are coming from. But oftentimes those players, not always, but a high percentage of the time, they do usually lead to deals down the road. Now, Demko might not be necessarily dealt before the deadline. Goalies are a little more complicated. There's not as big of a market for him. Vancouver, if they really want to consider this, and if Demko really does want a fresh scenery, teams like LA might be in the mix. There's others as well. Look around the NHL. There's a handful of teams you could think of that would certainly need goaltending help. Other teams in California will come to mind as well. San Jose and Anaheim as potential suitors too. But the offseason might be the easier, more likely time we see this actually take place. Demko's still got, $5 million on his deal for a few more years. If he gets back to playing like he was capable of a few years back, that could be a steal of a deal, depending on what they're willing to pay for a return price going to the Canucks. But we'll have to wait and see. That's certainly another very interesting name to watch there as well. So let me know your thoughts on all of the rumors leading up to the NHL trade deadline 2023. As I mentioned, hopefully we get this to YouTube in time that the information is still quite relevant. If not, we'll certainly have to just kind of look at the updated info here. I'm recording this here on Sunday night about 8:45, between 8:30 and 8:45 Eastern time. So we'll see how everything goes. It's going to probably be a busy night, a few more days ahead of us. So stay tuned. We'll keep you up to date with everything here for NHL trade deadline at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around for all those updates, and I'll catch you next time.